not dark in the sinister sense, but just difficult to understand. Is that right? So you need a new living translation in order to open up the scriptures for you. But and so, with that being said, I kind of thought, I said, let's just what the Spirit said. Let's just look into this thing about this King James Bible. What's to it? So we'll start off tonight with a question, and then we'll fall in, and we might get out about 6 minutes early. Have many points, but nevertheless, we don't know how the Spirit will lead us there. It may take us over time. What's the issue with the King James Bible? Why the King James Bible? We'll get to the outline in just a moment. But this is a general question. Why, for the Christian, the King James Bible? Sister Chapel, I'm gonna be transparent. I did give other answers earlier this week, so you can't say that.
I can't hear.
Can't help you tonight, brother. Why the King James Bible? Yeah, that's all we've ever known, right? Now we know that there are many other translations out there now, but in the original, and then there was one before the King James Bible, okay? But why? Ma'am?
Possibly understanding.
The question is, why the King James Bible and not King Arthur or Pope Benedict XV Bible? Why King James? Is that a more clearer question?
Because,
You're in the realm. Yes, sir.
because King James authorized it, he sanctioned it. This is how he said it would be.
You're in the ballpark, B, but we just, hey, let's say we're in the arena. Not at the 50-yard line yet, okay? But at least we're in the arena and the parking lot.
All right.
But all that's good, okay? So that's what we said, because King James authorized it, but we still haven't gotten to the why of it yet, okay? Okay, here we go. Let's get to the outline. Who wants point one? Who wants to take point one?
He was originally crowned as King James VI of Scotland. That's who was King James.
Okay. And really, these are really just points of history. I don't even know if there's any great discussion in that, but let's see if we can dig something out of it. Okay, he started out as in a simple kingdom of Scotland, okay? And this is a pure history lesson tonight for sure. Point B, Brother Fred.
He was contemporary with Queen Elizabeth I of England.
Okay. There's another part of that underneath that, I think.
Oh, who was the last heir to Henry VIII.
Okay.
Her health began to decline and she began a search for an heir. She had no husband or children to pass the throne of England to.
Okay, so thus far, King James is nowhere near authorizing the Bible because he was just king of Scotland. Is that right? Okay. Now let's see what happens in these sub points 1 and 2. What you got, Brother Fred?
Okay. King James' great-grandmother was Henry VIII's sister, which allowed King James to ascend to the throne. Thus, he was recrowned King James I of Scotland, England, and Ireland, unifying the crown.
Now y'all see how he's becoming to be more prominent in getting to the point of being the one that authorized the Bible to be written, right? Okay. Started out as a singular king in Scotland, then by a relationship, a strange relationship, because I don't even, I can't even go back and look at how the lineage comes together, but he was in the family of Queen, who was it? Was it Queen Elizabeth somewhere along the way, okay? Because his great grandmother was some kin to Henry VIII, and then the Queen was related to Henry VIII as well. It's almost like saying you don't have any immediate heirs, but you got a fifth cousin if there's such a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But he's related to you somewhere in the lineage, okay? So now he's in the ascendancy, okay? Now point 2.
Thus, he is recrowned King James I of Scotland, England, and Ireland, unifying the crown.
Okay, all right, nice. United Kingdom now. We've heard of that term, right?
Yes.
So now let's go to Roman numeral 2. Anybody feel so moved?
Okay.
King James, which was his sponsor. the transition of the Bible.
Okay,
K, KJV was commissioned in 1604 and published in 1611, 7 years later.
this was a major overtaking, brother. Okay,
B, it was directly translated from several languages: Hebrew, Aramaic, Greek, Latin. C, under King Henry VIII, the translation of the Bible was punishable by death per the Pope.
okay, stop right there, brother, for just a minute. I asked earlier why the King James Version of the Bible, and I may even be getting ahead of myself. But what we had in when you see these original languages, these languages, who could understand those? Nobody. And especially when at the time, the Bible, whenever it was, this is the translation. We're talking about when these things were written way before that. They were written in original language. Very few people could read it.
Right.
Okay? Truth be told, only intellectual people could read these kind of languages, right? The common people couldn't read, right? So the question being, why King James, according to the research, was a Christian. He was a Protestant. Okay, so and I think, would y'all, I'm gonna digress for a moment. Would y'all want to do a study on all these different denominations one day and see the significance of them? Because I mean, it comes from the Church of England being the mother church at one time. And you guys do know Martin Luther, right?
Yes.
Martin Luther, who was a preacher in his own rights, he protested against all of these different wicked things that were going on with the Church of England and with the Pope. You know, basically they were selling the Bible and selling all these other things, almost like you could buy your way into heaven. You know, that was the mindset of the time, and it was the ignorance of, you know, the populace at the time. You know, Pope felt they could give the Pope a certain amount of money, he could absolve them, and they could get into heaven. But you know, that's not the way you get into heaven.
Oh,
Okay?
no. Oh, no.
But so Martin Luther saw all of these things as being wrong, okay, in all consciences. So he started to protest. Thus, the Protestant movement comes along. Is that right? And then there are other denominations that spring from that. Okay, I think that Baptists probably, as a denomination, probably sprang from that too. Although we do have John the Baptist in the Bible days. But would you guys be interested in a Bible study on how these denominations work and what they do, how they came to be one day?
Certainly.
Certainly. I had a lineup for you, but let's just do that next week since we're on all the different denominations, you know.
Certainly.
Okay. All right. So what we have here is now the Bible you couldn't read it for the common person. So King James comes along, right? And he believes in Jesus, and he knows now, Sister Fanny, that we need to make this Bible accessible to the common man. Okay? Thus, the spreading of the gospel can go forth to everybody in that sense, because it's like trying to read. I don't know a foreign language. I know bits and pieces of foreign languages, but I'm not conversing in them. You know, all I know is one that I was born with, English, and I have trouble with that. You know, on a good day I do well, on a bad day I don't. You know, so King James makes this thing more accessible to who? The general public. Okay, and so it's translated from all these original language: Hebrew, Aramaic, which is Arabic, and also Latin. Okay, now we can kind of simplify it. This is where we get this King's language from, these these and thous and all these and these ye's and yays right now. Okay, because that was the common language at the time of this creation. Is that right?
Sure.
People would ask that question, why? That was just the language. This was just the King's language. This was what they called it all. That was the current English at the time. So that's how they wrote. But now we know that we have other Bibles that breaks it down into standard English, whereby we can understand all this good stuff. Now, does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
That's why King James did what he did, just to make the Bible accessible to everybody in a language that most people could, you know, read as being English. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what
So,
you
yes,
because
sir.
At that time, the Bible was in, as they said, all these different languages. What did it have in here? Hebrew, Aramaic, Greek, Latin. And like you said, the common man in England, they couldn't even hardly read English, let alone
Didn't do it.
try to read that. So as you said, he had them translated from all those various languages into English.
Mhm,
So the common man who could read
mhm.
could read and possibly understand. At least more of them would be.
And
able to.
believe it or not, even when this Bible was translated, right? Even when it was translated to
Go ahead.
English, there were a lot of people who still couldn't read,
Yeah, there's a lot of people who couldn't
even
read
at
that.
any time, okay? And you also have to understand too, guys, that when these languages were translated by these scholars, and we'll get to them in a minute, you also have to look at the context of the areas at the time when these languages were put in. I mean, the original language.
Mhm.
You can look at right now. It's amazing. You guys ever heard a preacher say something like that? He can take a simple word like was.
Mhm.
But in Hebrew, was may have meant something totally different. And you're saying to yourself, was is was. It's a past tense word. You know what I'm saying? But you'll hear a preacher somewhere go into the Hebraic language, or if it's in Greek or whatever, he won't use Latin, but he'll use either what the Bible is in now, either Hebrew or Greek, and take a whole symposium on what the word was, or what the word, let's say, give me another one, yeah, just for the sake of discussion.
Is.
You know what I'm saying? Is happening right now. There's nothing else that is, but in Hebrew, hey, Mr. Neese, how you doing? But in Hebrew, it may have meant something totally different.
Yeah.
Okay? In Aramaic, it may have meant something totally different. So all of this goes into the complexity of not knowing how, or not being able to read, or translate this stuff. And then you get to the modern day English language starting around when the Bible was, when the king came about trying to just make it accessible to everybody, okay? That's where we are. Any thoughts on that thus far? It may be like a school day now. We may get early out tonight now, y'all. I don't have any bonuses. I think it ran dry, really. I really did, because I usually like to give you a bonus to kind of stretch it out, but I may have run dry. But keep hope alive. Did we get point D?
Prior to the creation of the KJV, the most popular English translation of the Bible was the Geneva Bible.
Okay, that predates the King James Bible, and it was created in Geneva, Switzerland by some scholars, but it was still not as accessible or as pervasive as King James Bible would come to be, okay? So that's the predecessor of the King James Bible. Let's see point 3.
Part 3, King James commissions the translation council.
All right,
A, each council was dedicated to several portions of the Bible. B, he recruited 54 scholars and divided them into 6 committees.
Mhm.
C, the first committee translated Genesis and 2 Kings. D, the second committee translated 1 Chronicles, Songs of Solomon. E, the third committee translated Isaiah and Malachi. F, the fourth committee translated the Apocrypha. G, the fifth committee translated the Gospel, the Acts, and Revelation. H, the sixth committee translated the Epistles.
Okay, let's discuss that for a minute. Yes, sir.
Point clarification.
Mhm.
On those, like for instance, Genesis.
It's
they
through.
can-
through.
No,
It's
Yeah.
through those, not just though, but everything
Everything
from.
that- in that
Mhm.
dash, in that dash.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah. And so now let's look at King James. He has to get some real smart people to do this. Is
Of
that
course.
right?
Mhm.
He gets some real scholars and scribes who understand those languages. They understand Hebrew, they understand Aramaic. So now what do? They transcribe it into the old English that we have now,
Mhm.
okay? For example, the Bible will say something like, you may say, behold, you may say, and lo. And lo say, it simply is a phrase of saying, and look, okay? Or behold, something like that, you know? So I would like to know what behold and what and lo sounds like or looks like in Hebrew. You know what I'm saying? So they had to be smart people. He gets how many? 54 scholars. And he divides it up into committees. And they go down through the Bible. Let's just walk through them just for the sake of reinforcement. The first committee had Genesis through 2 Kings, okay? And I don't know if we can stretch that out any further, but that's all of this was a major undertaking. all right? What do you think, and I'm just asking, would be going on in the minds of these scholars who were adept in the multilingual, languages of the time, to not only just know the standard King's English, but also to know, and honestly, they were cross-trained in all of this, okay? So if one knew Hebrew, he also knew what? Greek. If one knew Greek, he also knew Aramaic. If one knew Aramaic, he also knew Latin.
Yes.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Is anybody in here multilingual? I'm not talking about English and Ebonics now.
Or Spanish. Just.
We'll go Spanish, yeah.
Some
We'll go-
Spanish. Some
You guys
Spanish.
are conversing in Spanish? That's I'm still struggling. I'm still struggling.
Muy poquito, muy poquito.
Oh, small bit, okay. I can't say yo soy aprendo español with me, and I'm still learning. That one, but that's where we are, okay. Any thoughts on King James and his undertaking right now? What is it that did you guys know anything beyond who King James was as the Bible being named after? Did you guys know anything else other than that?
Not really, and it certainly appears that King James was well intentioned
Mm-hmm.
in wanting to make the words, the text of the Bible, something that people could understand, that people were able to read, they might be able to glean something from it rather than looking at what they would have interpreted as gibberish.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And look at the big picture. Isn't it amazing how God, in his infinite wisdom, now Jesus told the disciples, go ye therefore and teach all nations and all lands whatsoever I commanded you, right? And that was in Jesus's time, okay? And of course, the disciples did the best they could. They spread the gospel as best, but it was spread how?
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth. Word of mouth, right? No books around. If they were, it wasn't this, okay? At some point after Jesus' ascension, all this stuff was written based on the experiences and the inspiration that God had given holy writers, right? But this is after Jesus leaves off the scene. So the question, I guess, becomes, how much could be lost in the oral translation, right? And then how much can be lost if it be so? The Bible is the best compilation we have, but how much can be lost even in the written translation? Anybody ever heard somebody say the Bible was, well, I'm gonna say this ungrammatically, the Bible was wrote by men. Now it should be written, of course, but they would say that, you know?
But
But
it was inspired by God.
they don't understand.
They don't
They don't
know.
understand that it was
If
inspired.
you go to the scriptures will tell you that the Bible was inspired by God. Yes, he had given holy men inspiration, okay? And then he said that, I think it's in Hebrews where he said that at various and in sundry times, God spoke to the fathers. This is the oral translation of it, okay? He spoke to the fathers at various and sundry times, and I'm paraphrasing, how they would keep this tradition of Christianity and Jesus Christ alive. Isn't it amazing? But could you still, let's just say if we were charged with being able to share our experiences to the next generations, and we were just doing it by oral tradition. That's all we would have, right? And if I'm not mistaken, I think that's a part of our history, probably was a part of every human history, but part of our history is that from Africa to here, things were carried by what? Oral traditions and oral translation. You know, watch this. Here's a good one for you. Thank you, Jesus. He's giving me some. This is a good one. Some of you may be aware of it, some of you not, but every last one of us are aware of people walking through the church like this.
Yeah.
What is that? What's the origin of that?
Slavery.
Okay, slavery being permission to leave the room.
That's right.
And here we go, and I'm not being ugly, but there are grown folk, growner than us,
Still do.
kicking like this.
Because they don't know.
Isn't that amazing, Brother Deacon?
Uh-huh.
Now, I'm not being smart or funny, but you know what you know. You know what I'm saying? And so, but it would be, you would think that somebody would have told them somewhere along the way, if I'm 75 years old and I'm still doing it, you would just think that somebody would say, off to the side, don't do that there. It's like Kuna Kente eating grits with filler with his hands. You know what I'm saying? He just eating the grits. I didn't even know when I was growing up, I would see my mama and my grandmama eat collard green with their hands. I thought it was fun. But I didn't know that was a slavery tradition though, you know what I'm saying? You mash them greens up and throw them in your mouth and, but it was something about me being a modern day individual as a child. I wanted not a fork, but I wanted a fork.
Well, it may have been a slave thing, but then also, I don't think utensils were a thing either. I mean, even.
It wasn't for us at the time, but it was for the
Right,
master.
that's what I'm saying. So that's why we
Yeah.
learned to eat with our hand.
Oh,
And even
absolutely.
as being I remember being a little girl, let's see, we didn't have glasses. We drank out of cans.
Mhm.
Okay, and so, I didn't know, I did eat and get fed, so I didn't consider it, I do, I know in my grandmother's house.
Some things just grow into traditions.
Yeah.
All of it did,
Like
Go
you
ahead,
said,
Dick.
people raise their hand, well, that's been tradition, they were taught that, they saw it when they were kids,
Mhm.
they did it when they grew up, and their kids saw it,
Sure,
and it just
sure.
passed on.
That's
But
all
like
it
you said,
was.
nobody really researched to know why did we do that.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yes.
grandmama used to do that, mama used to do that, daddy used to do that, so I do that.
Okay, and grandmother, mother and such as that probably would have punished you, and that's being polite, if you got up in church and did not hold up a finger, as though that was some declaration or such as that. But going down a different path, the individuals who will, well, we've all seen males who will wear pants that are sagging, because they're, at least part because they are devoid of a belt, without any consideration of the origins of that people who were incarcerated had their belts taken away so that they could not do themselves or anyone else harm. But entertainers have popularized that to where a number of people say that's style and that's what I want to project.
Is there something else, and again, not to go off the scale, but is there something else related to that you guys have heard with it? Is it just the fact that, and I'm just asking because I've heard some other things.
Please.
Okay, is it something to it more than the not doing an individual harm when when they had their belts taken from them? Is there another part to that we have
I heard
heard?
it was,
Tell me about it, Ms. John.
I never heard about the belt thing. Must be an older generation. The younger generation says that, it's a sign of you are somebody's property in the jailhouse.
But I've heard that, not from just young people. I've heard that from adult people that have been incarcerated.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That was an ownership thing, and it wasn't the kind of ownership that you wanted to be a part of.
Mhm.
So, D, have you heard it on that one?
I have not heard that. So one who wore a belt or did not have a
Didn't
belt?
have to have the band when you sang.
With a belt.
Okay, okay.
Oh, we're gonna ask the expert, Miss Sheila, what's your take on that thing? Cause I know somewhere in law enforcement.
I was told the same thing. I was literally sitting here thinking, soap on the road. Same
Isn't it interesting, and we'll get back on the scale in a minute, but isn't it interesting when you look at the younger population today that they glorify that type of style because somehow or another the rappers got into it and they don't really understand the historicity behind whether it's the belt for not being one to hang yourself or harm yourself, or the thing that you would be somebody's male property in the jailhouse, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And what gets me is, and I'm probably railing it now, you see young guys, they would have no belt on, and they'll be walking around like this, seriously, and I'm saying to I see it every day in the schoolhouse, I'm like, well, wait a minute, why not just put a belt on, that's what the belt's for,
Right.
you know? You,
Everything. I mean, but even walking around, got the whole look and stuff.
Like I have given a few belts
Mhm.
to boys and young men, like in the grocery store, outside the store, whatever. You try to, I said, where's your belt? I don't have one. Oh, okay, then can you wear this? And I just give it to them.
So you had something?
I had something one time back years ago, they had a movie called, The Soul of the Game at Rickwood Ballpark. And I was a stand-in for one of the stars. And the guy who was the assistant, he, to the director, after one says cut, he would say cut. And he didn't wear his, belt. And every time I always would tell him, please pull your pants up. The one day I didn't get a chance to say, pull your pants up, he stepped on his pants and it fell completely down to his ankles. And he looked at me like you were supposed to have told me to pull my pants up. It
They have a
was.
song too, what, pants on the ground or something?
Yeah, they did that during the American Idol. American Idol.
He got kicked off, but everybody
Yeah.
remembers that
Yeah,
song.
everybody.
Well, some of you,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
some of you will remember, one of the, brief times that Broad Street had a basketball team. And I don't remember the young man's name. He was a better player on the team, but his pants sagged in play to the point that he's going down the court and he's dribbling with one hand and holding up his pants with the other. It was a sad display. It was a sad display, frankly. It really was.
Mhm.
Well, there was a time, now you don't see it as much now. Some men, young boys, men, would wear one earring, and they said that was a reason for that.
It's similar to the earlier discussion, I think, yes.
Well, let me say
Oh,
something, on all of this, and it was related to the oral translation over time. Relevant to what we're saying now, and we're coming back on 20 in a minute, was that I know when we were in school, if you had the misfortune of not having a belt, you'd get laughed out of the school.
Mhm.
That's the way it was. You know, pants that were baggy, they laughed you out of the school, or pants that were too high. That hadn't been that long ago.
Flood.
You know what I'm saying? Now, all of a sudden, high pants are good, sagging pants are good, and having no belt is good. I remember growing up when people had makeshift belts.
Mhm.
Mhm. Makeshift could be a jump rope
Right.
or whatever other apparatus you could use to cinch your pants up, you know?
Yeah, some long cloth that you could
Yeah.
thread through
Now, the
there.
earring thing, mother, as far as I know, has been around a long time. Bible days with men, they had it, I don't know whether, at one minute it was one earring, 1 minute it was a left ear, 1 minute it was a right ear, then 1 minute it was two, so I don't know about that one, because they do it all kinds of ways, they've done it all kinds of ways with that earring thing, so. I don't know the attraction. I just don't like men with earrings. I don't dislike them, but I don't see that as appealing, you know, that's a.
Some of it is cultural,
Mhm.
because in America, if you see two men walking together, they usually like to keep a space between them. They don't want anybody thinking that they together.
Mhm.
But if you go to Europe, men walk together holding
Arm,
hands
arms.
or even arms around their
Yeah.
necks, walking side by side, head to head,
Mhm.
talking. But that's what they do.
Mhm.
That's just the way they kept, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing
That's the way it is.
sexual about it. That's just what they do. I mean, you see two men walking around, like I said, arm around each other's neck, head to head, talking and laughing and joking. That's just normal for them, especially in Italy. You see that in Italy a lot.
Well, how about from Paris?
Probably France too.
Oh,
But
I ain't doubt about
it's
it.
various cultures.
It's real prevalent in that,
Yeah.
in Europe, period.
But various cultures have different things that you would look at and go, huh? And
Yeah.
things that we do, they look at and go, huh?
Well, but see, culture is different, because you know, culture is what it is. Every region has a strange kind of thing, but what I'm troubled by is when I see preachers with diamond earrings in their ears. I'm troubled by that. What message does that send, really?
That's,
Yeah.
you see a lot of celebrities with them.
Well, let's stay with the preachers right now, Ms. Wayne.
Oh,
The celebrities,
Oh, I know,
yeah.
but I don't like the preachers with them.
absolutely, but they will wear them. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, we can't regulate that, but it's just that there are some things where the decorum is just totally out of place. Okay?
Yeah.
All right? And the earring for me with any preacher, it's more prevalent in younger preachers, you know,
Oh,
and, you know, because I think that, you know, now the church is a place for all kind of people that need to be, but it should be a place for healing, reconciliation, and
Right.
trying to know more about the Lord to get your soul saved, okay?
Yeah.
But now we do know that if we're in here and all of us are sanctified and all that kind of thing, we're sanitized. But you have to bring the unsanitized through these doors too,
That's
right? And that's the whole purpose of it. But what I can't get to or understand is it's beyond me how, let's just say, you know, younger preachers, because I mean, I don't, what would you do if you see a real full grown preacher? I'm talking about grown, seasoned preacher with earrings in his ear leading the congregation. That'd be a sad sight, Brother Deacon, if you ask me now.
But I think that's, again, generational.
Yeah.
Older, like, you saw most older preachers, they're gonna come in here dressed to the nines,
Mhm.
soft suit, clothes, or robe. They show up. Younger preachers in some churches don't even dress in suits. They'll have on casual clothes, sneakers, and all that, but that's generational.
Mhm.
Like you said, the earrings, they're so used to growing up with young men with earrings, they don't even think about it. That's just, you know, if you ask them, say, well, why you got the earring? They probably would say, you know what? I don't even know why anymore. It's just something that I started when I was younger,
Mhm.
whether it was peer pressure, well, I won't say pressure, but just you saw the peers doing it, and so you decided to do it, and it just gradually grew. And then after a while, after years, you don't even think of it anymore.
Mhm.
But like I said, it's generational. Like I said, if you see older preachers, they're gonna usually be sharp dressed,
Right.
you know, but that's generational.
And yeah, and we understand it, you know, this conversation was born out of
Mhm.
the thing about the oral translation from the Bible for people carrying on the tradition, but it kind of morphed into something else. But here we are back on the script. Now, let's just go over these different divisions right quick and then, you know, we'll conclude. And, I think we stopped at point, C.
Read all of
Yeah,
it.
you did. I just kind of want to go over them just quickly, just to kind of.
You want to read C again?
Well, let's just kind of look at them one by one. Let's just start at C.
The first committee translated Genesis through Second Kings.
Okay, now there's really nothing I can extract from that in the sense that we just see the range there, okay, like all of them. D,
The second committee translated First Chronicles through Songs of Solomon.
let's stop right at Song of Solomon. Now, what's the purpose of the Song of Solomon? Anybody ever just read through that? Seems like a bunch of love poems, right?
Right.
So how does that feed your soul? Somehow or another, God thought it fit for that to be in there. But look, let's examine that for a minute. Okay? What's the real, what does it serve? It serves something, but I mean, is it applicable to learning the scriptures and applying the word to your life? Solomon said something to the effect, you know, my love is like a black dove. He rapping. You know what I'm saying? Like sheep brought up from the watch, Brother Deacon. What can you extract from that?
Not much.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Mother.
Maybe because he had a lot of wives.
But what I'm saying is, what's the utility of it as it relates to David was saying something like this: "The Lord is my shepherd." You can do a lot with the Lord as my shepherd. You hear me?
Yeah.
You know, He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. You can do a lot with that. There's a lot of teaching in there. But my love coming up from now it is from Solomon's, clearly from his experiences.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm just asking. What's the purpose? We really don't know, but I just don't see it in there. We went over a word up here earlier called the Apocrypha. Y'all, yes, ma'am.
Oh, no, I was going back to, figurative. So people would understand if I say, it in a certain way, people would understand it if I compare it to, take them to the water, but you can't take them to drink.
Which area are you comparing that to? You're relating that to, I missed the point. Where are you relating that to?
No, what you were saying earlier about the Songs of Solomon,
Yeah.
how it's poetic or whatever,
Mhm.
and then maybe it's that way for understanding.
Mhm.
again, for understanding, so people would, is what they call it figurative speech.
Okay,
The way they put the words so people would understand it,
Mhm.
understand the text. Am I?
Oh, I hear you. Okay, well, let me just stop right there for a moment, because I don't know the right or wrong. I always just wondered why it was there. Okay, of course, God thought it fit for it to be there. But let's just say that anything anybody got their Bible? Well, no, we won't even go there. But we know about the songs of songs. You know,
Yes.
okay, now, if you want to, let's go there and examine that and see what benefit it has versus going to say, Hebrews 11:1. Hebrews 11:1 is chock full of powerful information that will help your soul.
Yeah.
Okay, what you got, Brother Deacon, in Songs of Solomon, anything?
Well, I'm looking at the outline here in my Bible, and the fifth of those Roman numerals, conflict in the marriage. The daughters of Jerusalem, the Shulamite, the daughters of Jerusalem. Again, I've not looked at it closely. Number 6 is maturity in marriage. Number 7, intensity in the marriage. Again, I've not looked at this closely, so I don't know what those messages
Well,
are.
let me ask you this, can somebody just go to the first Song of Solomon and read a few lines? Let's just see what
The Song of
Mhm.
Above the Song of Solomon, it says on here, the Song of Solomon is a love song written by Solomon and abounding in metaphors and oriental imagery. It's historically, it depicts the wooing and wedding of a shepherd by King Solomon and the joys and heartaches of wedded love. And it says allegorically, it pictures Israel as God's betrothed bride and the church as the bride of Christ. As human life finds its highest fulfillment in love of man and woman, so spiritual life finds its highest fulfillment in the love of God for his people and Christ for his church.
Okay, that's a good definition, but there's a lot of gobbledygook in there for me.
Yeah, but I mean, saying that's what he said. That's what it's supposed to represent.
Give me a few lines from the actual scriptures.
The Song of Songs, which is Solomon's. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for thy love is better than wine, because of the savor of thy good ointments. Thy name is as ointment poured forth. Therefore, do the virgins love thee. Draw me, we will run after thee. The king hath brought me into his chambers. We will be glad and rejoice in thee. We will remember thy love more than wine. The upright love thee. I am black, but comely.
That's the part they don't.
That sound like,
That's the
but
part they don't like right
Right.
now.
You know it was black then.
yeah.
O ye daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. Look not upon me, because I am black, because the sun hath looked upon me. My mother's children were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyards, but mine own, the vineyards have I not kept. Tell me, O thou whom my soul loveth, where thou feedest, where thou makest thy flock to rest at noon. For why should I be as one that turneth aside by the flocks of the companions?
Okay, now somebody let's go to Hebrews 11:1. Let's just do Hebrew. Let's start with Hebrews 11:1, I think. But let's see which one of them has the better medicine, better spiritual medicine.
Hebrews 11th chapter.
11th chapter, start with verse 1.
Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen.
Okay, stop right there, mother. Now we compare when we talk about the bedrock of what we have is faith.
Yeah.
Okay, now we talk about immediate faith. Not delayed faith, but now faith. Is that right? It is the substance. What does that say? I got it in my mind. It ain't here yet, but my faith says that it's on the way. The evidence of things unseen. Do y'all see the value in that versus I'm not discounting that.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Take us a little further. Let's get some witnesses of faith, mother, if you will.
So by it, the elders attained a good report.
Okay. Don't you want to have a good report with Jesus?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, keep going.
That's right. Through faith, we understand that the worlds were framed
You
by the
can't
word of God, so that things which are seen were not made of things.
stop right there for a minute. Now, you can't understand how this world got here unless you accept by faith that Jesus put it together. From that which was not seen,
Yep.
that became the seen. Now you lovely, you black, you coming up from the wash. What they got to do with anything? Which one? Now I'm gonna say this and I'm gone, Miss Sheila. What would you rather have? Would you rather have now faith being the substance, or would you rather have the faith to say, I believe by my faith that Jesus created the worlds out of nothing. I believe that the power of his word is sustaining the whole world according to the Bible. Is that right? I believe, and I ain't even seen it yet, that eyes have not seen, ears have not heard. That is a greater thing up there. While I'm living here, trying to live my best life now on this side, but there's a greater life when I leave here. Brother Deacon, how do you reconcile that? Now, I'm not disparaging the songs, but I'm talking about the one that's got the most weight. Have I a witness?
Okay.
Clearly the one is giving a spiritual, dare I say, practical statement. The other one is a romantic poem.
Okay. I got plenty of romantic poems. Brother Fred, you even said it was allegory or a metaphor, and I think allegories and metaphor are like first cousins. But the scriptures that'll help your soul are not allegories.
Right.
They're not metaphors. They are substantive. Is that right? They are. What was it said? I think it was in Judges. Is there no balm in Gilead to heal the soul?
That's right.
I can get a poem anywhere, but I can't get this but out of the Bible where it's going. As your grandmama would say, hope me. Is that right?
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that? Are we together?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's go. Thank you, Jesus. Let's go to point E. The third committee, Miss Wendy.
The third committee translated Isaiah through Malachi.
Malachi, okay. That's a good distance. Let's go to F and G and H.
The fourth committee translated
The Apocrypha. Anybody ever heard of the Apocrypha? What is it? Hmm? What is it?
That's what
What is it?
You just, what did he say? You just asked what have we heard?
Oh,
I heard
so
it.
you've heard of it, okay? So this is a teaching point, okay? There's a difference between,
What is it, John?
okay, I know what it is, I'm just saying,
John,
okay,
Writing,
ma'am.
collection of ancient
Well,
writings.
the Bible, the scriptures are a collection of ancient writings, but what's the difference between the Apocrypha and the authorized canons of scriptures, Brother Deacon? There's a difference. The Apocrypha is stuff that is not accepted as canons of scripture, okay? They could be even apocalyptic, okay? But the scriptures are set in stone and they are accepted by, what makes the scriptures acceptable? Of course, first they're inspired by God, okay? Then they're translated down through the years, but somebody could argue the fact that, okay, some man still wrote them, so what makes, they are canonized, which means that they are officially recognized through scholarly research. Is that right? There's a difference between scholarly research and spurious research. False, if you want to call it that. Scholarly research is accepted. Spurious research is something that's it's fake, and it could be like creating your own degree on your own computer, if you want to get an analogy. So that's what the Apocrypha is. It rhymes with hypocrisy to a point, right? So that's what the Apocrypha is. Y'all ever thought about those? What's really officially sanctioned in the Bible and what's not? Here's the thing. The Bible is a big book, isn't it?
Yep.
It's got about 1,000 and some odd pages or more, I don't know. The Gospel of John says close to the 24th chapter, I think that it's so much that Jesus did in his short 3 years that the Bible, we would be, we worn down already with it, trying to read it and understand it. He said that the world couldn't contain the books
That's right.
that should be written about what Jesus did in 3 years. Isn't that powerful?
It's powerful.
Swimming in the head material. The vertigo. Is that right? All right.
I know about vertigo.
What your ancestors call it in the
Vertigo, because I have.
oh no, they didn't call it that. They call
Women are
there you go.
women.
All right, let's go. Let's go. What does G say?
The fifth committee translated the Gospel, the Acts, and Revelation.
And H.
The sixth committee translated the epistles.
All I'm gonna say this, and then we'll move on, is that when I was researching this, because I didn't know, it was revelational to me that as far as King James's inspiration to put this together for people in his time to have more access to the scriptures, because they were complicated in their original writings, and they were even more complicated. They were just as much complicated when he made it in English, just in common English, because a lot of folks still couldn't read. Okay, but somehow God was in the mix on that. Isn't that right? He was in the mix on it because he wanted the whole world to know in simplistic terms who Jesus was, what was his mission, why he came, and that you need to be more strengthened as a believer, right?
Okay.
And now we got that all over the world. Okay, final point. Number 4.
Number 4, the final translation was a massive undertaking. It was finished and published in 1611. 7 years later, the Bible was largely unaffordable to the general public at the time of its publication.
And that is the summation and the conclusion. That's why King James wrote, he didn't write it, but that's why he commissioned it to be translated. Okay, this is why if you see, I guess it's not on here, but it usually somewhere in there, King James Version, which we still use today. And there are others, of course, modern translations that makes it a more simplified version to read. So did we gain anything from King James today
Yeah.
that we didn't know, other than the fact that, the Bible was sponsored by him, modern version? May not have been the most exciting lesson, but I believe we gleaned some nuggets from
Yes.
it. Any final thoughts before we get to benediction?
Well, I think it's always good to have our eyes open to things that we may have simply taken for granted. We're always referring to the King James Version. The source of it, or the things that brought it into being, and how it became the standard of religious learning, is something that we oftentimes don't consider. So yes, I think this was good.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys. We're going to do God's will. We're going to look into those different denominations and what they do, what they mean, and we'll bounce that around a little bit. We're going to see what makes so it's not about being a Baptist, it's about being a Christian.
Yes.
Being a Lutheran or
Yes.
Episcopalian, none of that crazy stuff. Honestly, I want to understand how those denominations came to. Because Jesus is universal.
Right.
Okay. Anybody got any thoughts on that? How these denominations came to be?
I think the Baptists really came when they say John the Baptist. Now, how the rest of them, I don't know. I was non-denominational, so which
Y'all became non-denominational.
the church itself, when I went to the church, it's still non-denominational. It's non-denominational now, but their service, I would say, is a mixture. You can see probably some Baptists in it, some Methodists in it, or whatever, but it's more of they consider it a community church instead of
But here's the question though. Since everything revolves around Jesus and he ain't got no divisions of denominations and things of that nature, all that stuff just, why we even deal with it? I mean, I know it's tradition maybe, but
Supposedly,
Baptists don't mean nothing other than the fact that we have to be baptized. That's a part of the,
Right.
ordinance, but.
But I
we are
feel like it's
Christians.
because of John the Baptist.
Mm.
Yeah, from what I understand
I
of the
got you.
Baptist church. I don't
Yeah,
know yet.
I got you. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, all of them are baptized. I mean, we were
A lot,
baptized.
I mean, a lot of denominations aren't, some sprinkle, and there's a difference between sprinkling,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was about to.
I think Methodist may, I know we baptized.
Mm.
We
Yeah.
don't water.
Yeah.
And I might have come to drawn the conclusion that the Baptist denomination came from John the Baptist.
Mhm.
Is that to say that followers of John not to say the Church of John the Baptist, but essentially followers of John the Baptist took that as the practice of baptism as part of the, say, cornerstones of their religion?
Well, let me answer that by saying this. Jesus ordained baptism and he
He did.
ordained.
Yes, he did.
the Lord's Supper, okay? And we understand what baptism is about because then you're
Right.
going down into the watery grave in the old man and coming up anew, rising to as a new creature or a new person in Christ, right? So he could have been Leroy the Baptist, okay? John the Baptist just happened to be baptizing, is that right? He could have been, Nicodemus the Baptist or whomever, okay? And I think what we became, you're right now, John the Baptist didn't have so much influence on him, but he just had been commissioned by God to be the pathfinder, what am I trying to say, the waymaker for Jesus to come along, and baptism was something that Jesus and God ordained. So hence Baptist.
Mhm.
Anybody that's baptized now is a Christian and they are a Baptist. That's how that denomination came about. But go ahead.
But even in the 7 churches, they don't define as saying Baptist.
When you talk about 7 churches in Revelation, I don't know, Miss Denise, but what I do know is, we do know that Jesus ordained it because John the Baptist said to him, you come to me.
Right, I
But,
understand
yeah, so now I'm gonna do it. I don't need to be baptized, but it's a part of the holy ordinance to be baptized.
Mhm.
Right,
Okay, so I have to look into that.
right. But I was just saying the 7 churches in Revelation, they don't say, Philippi is one of them, and it is Philippian Baptist or,
Right.
I have to name, name it. They don't say Baptist with the churches.
Right, well, no, they just, the churches of Asia Minor,
Right.
Smyrna, Laodicea, whatever they may,
Right.
Philadelphia, and all that sort of thing. I'll say this and I'll let it go, is that I think somehow along, a lot of that stuff is traditional.
Yeah.
And I think that we got caught up in it because, we, as Christians, we are ordained into baptism. Okay, and Baptist just came along with it, and the way I understand. it, okay? Yes, sir.
Could it be just that as simple as time went on, religions, people disagree, they break apart.
Oh, now, well,
And
that's the whole
when they
thing
break
about the
apart,
Protestant
that's the whole
movement, okay?
thing.
The Protestant movement began, that's why we'll delve into it, but you don't, Fred.
See, 'cause
That's
it's-
they were
That's the way
protesting
they-
the Church of England and the Catholic Church about all that other crazy stuff they didn't like.
But what it is, because Henry VIII, he changed it from Catholic to Protestant because he wanted to get a divorce. And the Catholic, and the Pope wouldn't allow him to get a divorce. So he said, well, I'm no longer Catholic. We're gonna start our own church, the Church of England.
Mhm.
We're Protestant.
Protesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, so what did he do? He killed his wife, and married another. Killed her, married another.
Let's,
But the Pope,
let's see what the research finds, but that's
what
yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Henry VIII changed it from Catholic to Protestant because he wanted to get a divorce, and the Catholic Church would not allow him to do it and keep the crown.
That's true, but let's see where Martin Luther fits in there, because he's really, really the end of the puzzle piece in that too.
Yeah.
In Reformation, because he wanted to reform.
But the king is the one who can make the
Oh,
decision.
I hear you.
Yeah.
That's why, that's the crossroad. I'm not protesting that.
No. But that's what I'm saying.
Or
Or,
Oh,
no,
Not that Martin Luther, that's
That's what I'm
what
just saying. Churches break apart, start new
different.
subdivisions,
Different
and they take on their own,
you know.
yeah.
traditions as to how they're gonna do things.
Mhm.
And like I said, Baptist was probably just one of the breakups. They just, you know, they
Yeah,
said, well,
I
we're
got
gonna be
you.
Baptist.
We understand the origin of Baptists.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, yeah. I'm gonna do my Dr. King impersonation. I'm gonna put myself out here on that note. And,
Yeah.
you may get me, you may not, as it relates to what we do or don't know right now. And I'd like to say this, I'm sort of afraid that we're not finding out the finality of the situation until we do our research on it.
Okay.
Let's research.
I like to say, I think those men was very smart, though. You able
They
to
was
hold it
scholars.
together.
Yeah,
You're
they-
right.
Oh, no doubt about it now, no doubt.
Wow. Well, that's interpretation.
Yeah, I think we're agreed on that one thing, if nothing else, that those individuals were indeed scholarly, that they did know their stuff, and they were commissioned to do a good work. It is the language that, with which people were accustomed then, language, like so many things, change, thus, what thus saith the Lord in the King James Version sometimes may not be crystal clear to our ear, which is why we have to truly study to show ourselves approved, workmen who need not be ashamed.
Yeah.
All right, on that note, if we will please stand, and we'll be dismissed. Please repeat with me. The Lord watch
Between thee and thee, when we're absent, one from the other. Amen.
All right. I can check, I know it's cold. It sure is. You doing good? You say something else?
Okay.
Right.
So, Reverend Barlow, I'm not sure if it's you and Sister Barlow, but thank you for coming on with us. Have a good night.